Hey everybody, this is James Hernandez. How's everybody doing today? Hope you're all doing good and staying safe and all that. And welcome to my one of my horror movie review videos. And yep, this is it everybody. This is the first time of the year that I'm going to be doing some horror movie review videos. And for today's movie I'm going to be reviewing is I'm going to be reviewing the second installment of the Scream movie franchise. That is right, I got the all three Scream movies here yet again, and today I'm going to be reviewing Scream 2. So Scream 2 is the sequel to the first movie, and this one was released in 1997, a year after the first one, and it was written by Kevin Williamson and directed by Wes Craven, and the movie brought back Neve Campbell, David Arquette, and Courtney Cox as Sidney Prescott, Sidney Prescott, Dewey, and Gale Weathers. Sorry about that. So yeah, the movie brought the three original cast back to reprise their roles as Sidney, Dewey, and Gale. So let's talk about the story of this movie. So the movie begins with a couple that goes into the movie theater to go see the movie called Stab, which is a fan-made horror movie, which is based on the book that Gale Weathers was writing, and then it was made as a movie. And the movie theater experience is just beyond crazy because it reminds me of like something like out of a movie theater experience of the Minecraft movie that we actually have heard of early this year. And then everybody was like dressing up as Ghostface, and they were watching like the scene, which kind of looks like a reimagining of the first Scream movie in the beginning. And then these two actually ended up getting killed off by the real Ghostface. And while everyone was just like being celebrated like crazy in the movie theater, like over a scene like where Ghostface is actually killing the blonde girl that looks like Casey Becker from the first movie. So after that, we got to see Sidney Prescott, who is now in college, and she is pretty much like having like a peaceful life. But that wasn't until she heard on the news that there's another copycat Ghostface killer on the loose, and then has been like targeting other college students. So it's up to her, along with Dewey and Gale, to stop the Ghostface killers once and for all. So I first watched this movie like when the first Scream was a huge success when it came out, and when I heard that there's a second movie, I actually was really interested to go see because my overall thoughts on the first movie is that I actually really enjoyed it. It's one of those like greatest slasher films that came out in the 90s that actually brought back the popularity of horror films because just like when I review the first movie, the installments of the Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween, when one of their fewer sequels that actually were not getting that much praise as they were, and pretty much the slasher genre was dying. The first Scream movie came out, and it actually got everyone back into horror movies and especially into the slasher genre. So after when I watched Scream 2, what did I think of Scream 2? I actually really enjoy this. Now there are some small nitpicks I kind of have with the movie, but like I always mention in my previous videos, I'm always going to start with the positives, and then I'll get into my negatives. So let's start with the positives I really like about this movie. First off is the acting from the three main characters. Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott is spectacular, and just like in the first movie, she did a very good job, and she is like one of the greatest and one of the most badass final girls ever in a horror movie. And in this movie, I think she's actually way more badass when she actually fights like the Ghostface killers, who whenever they try to kill her, she would either like stand up for herself, and she is literally like tired of running, and she would do whatever it takes to protect her friends, especially the ones that she loves and she cares about, and she does everything to like fight back in order to defend herself as well as defend her friends from Ghostface or whatever Ghostface tries to kill her. And not much I can say about Neve Campbell's performance as Sidney because like her performance in the first movie, she did a very good job. And as for David Arquette as Dewey, what I really like about Dewey in this movie is that unlike in the first film where he was kind of a bit whiny when his sister Tadium was actually very impatient because they're like one of the most like impatient sibling relationships I actually have ever seen. And then and I like that he is more of like a responsible sheriff and will do everything to like to protect Sydney and find like the Ghostface killers. And his chemistry with Gale Weathers is actually very genuine and is and which really makes sense because Dewey and Gale actually are a couple, and also because like David Arquette and Courtney Cox were dating each other during the filming of the second movie, and I heard they actually did got married at the end of the second movie after when it came out. And David Arquette, I think, is actually better than he was in the first movie. Now, he was good in the first movie, but I actually thought that his character and the way how he was written is actually better in this one. And as for Gale Weathers in this one, Gale Weathers is still like a very nosy news reporter who wants to know about like the mysteries of like of Sydney's mother's murder, and then it turns out that it wasn't Cotton Wary, who Cotton Wary was seen briefly in the first movie, which at first he thought, which we thought at first that he was the one who killed and murdered Sydney's mother, but then it turns out that it really wasn't, because if you have seen my review for the first movie, it was Billy Loomis. And I don't really have to say about Billy Loomis of why he kills Sydney's mother in the first movie. Go check out my first review for the first Scream movie if you want to know. But anyway, so Cotton Weary has been released, and then it turns out that he's actually an innocent man. And Gale Weathers wants to make sure that if Sydney is okay, and if she's like she's getting over the fact that Cotton Weary is actually an innocent man the whole time. And Courtney Cox also did a very good job with her performance as well. Even though Gale Weathers as a character was kind of a mixed bag, like she's not like one of my favorite final girls in horror movies. She's definitely not as likable as Sydney. But the more times that her character is written, she actually is comes off as a better character. And I actually pretty much like Gale Weathers, and I think her hair is actually very pretty. And I gotta say the same thing about Sydney, that their hair is actually becomes like short, and it actually makes them look very attractive. So I actually had to give credit to both Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox, and these two actually do come off as like being like a really good duo. Even I also like the moments where Gale was doing some detective work with Dewey to find like who is responsible for all the murders of other college students that Ghostface has been causing. So yeah, and now let's talk about the kills. Now I got a list of kills here on my phone. Now, what I just noticed is that unlike the first movie where it has like 5 kills, this one actually has 8. And there is like 8 total kills by Ghostface in this movie. And the kills is actually pretty brutal. Well, not as brutal as it was in Scream 5 or even Scream 4, but it is pretty brutal like when you compared it to the first movie. My favorite kill in the movie has to be this scene right here. And that is where the 2 officers were taking Sydney and her new best friend Haley to somewhere safe, and then Ghostface appears, and then he actually stabbed one officer in the throat, and then he actually like took the other officer off the car. Then he went inside the car, and then this one officer like was telling Ghostface to get out of the car, but then instead of getting out of the car, Ghostface actually drove the car, and then he just like went just GTA on that guy, because like he just like start the car, and he just like ran over the guy, and it was like causing like crashes, and then until the officer got impaled in the face by this I don't know, it was like this pole thing. And it's so graphic that the fact that I was just like, oh my god, Jesus. And I actually really like that kill, because of like the rest of the kills in the Scream movies, I just kind of felt like it does get pretty repetitive when it's all like, oh, stabby, 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 and all that. But this kill right here, like when Ghostface just ran over the officer and then the officer got impaled in the face by the pole, is actually like one of my favorite kills in the series. The other kill I also really like is when Ghostface goes after this girl named Cece Cooper, who is actually played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. And what's really interesting about Sarah Michelle Gellar's character is that she was also in other films. Like she was in I Know What You Did Last Summer, and she was also in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And then in the 2000s, she plays Daphne Blake in the first two live action Scooby Doo movies based on the Hanna-Barbera cartoon Scooby Doo. So back then, you could really tell that Sarah Michelle Gellar was a very talented actress back then, and especially like when it comes to like scream queens in horror movies throughout like the 90s as well as in the 2000s. So yeah, like the scene like where Ghostface was calling CC Cooper, and then he was like, "Do you want to die tonight, CC?" And it gets really suspenseful. And then when she answers like another phone, and Ghostface just appears behind the door, and then he starts chasing after her, and then Cece tries everything that she can to protect herself from Ghostface just by throwing stuff at him, even like throwing a bicycle, which I was like, a bicycle, really? Like that, like, yeah, sure, that's gonna work because that does not even make Ghostface fell off. And then like Ghostface did grab her, and then he just like throw her to like the glass of the terrace, and then he stabbed her back like three times, and then what Ghostface did was this. Yeah, he just like threw her off the balcony, and then the way, about three stories tall, and then the way how she lands, it was like this, and I was like, Jesus Christ. And then like Ghostface just like cleans like the blood out of his knife, and then he just like retreats, and that's what we see like the remains of CC Cooper. And it was like so brutal and just felt real, that the fact that she actually landed on the floor like so hard when Ghostface actually tosses her out of like three stories tall. And I was just like, oh my god, that definitely hurts, especially just as painful as the officer death when he got impaled in the face by the pole when Ghostface just went Grand Theft Auto. Now the other kill I actually wanted to talk about is where every Scream fan was very sad about. I was very sad too when I heard this character got killed off, and that is Randy. Yeah, talk about like one of our fan favorite characters that actually got killed off, and it actually just makes us feel like we feel so sad for, because when Randy got a call from Ghostface when Dewey and Gail were trying to track someone who was actually trying to impersonate Ghostface on who is the actual killer. And then things got even worse when Randy was talking smack about Billy and Stu, especially about Billy Loomis. And he was like saying like all these like really like inappropriate stuff about Billy Loomis. And then until Ghostface came out of the RV, drags Randy into the RV and closes the door, and they were like wrestling, and there was like three guys that just like ran past, and they were just like dancing and go like, oh, do 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 do, and then like Ghostface made Randy break the window, and then he just like stabs Randy multiple times. And that is where like the fans were just like, oh no, like why you gotta kill off Randy, he was one of the greatest characters like in the first movie and even the second film, why you gotta kill him off and all that. And I was really sad that Randy was killed off. So, and I do think the movie did a good job. They actually have they really do have the guts of like killing off like one of our favorite characters in like from the previous installment of the franchise. And the other character I actually wanted to talk about really quick is Derek. Now, if you guys don't know who Derek is Sydney's new boyfriend, and he's played by Jerry O'Connell, which I first saw him in the 2003 movie Kangaroo Jack. Now, I haven't watched Kangaroo Jack in years, ever since when I was in school. But when I heard that Jerry O'Connell was in Scream 2, and I recognized his face, and I was like, is that the same guy who played Charlie in Kangaroo Jack? Oh my god, that is really him. How did I even not notice that? So yeah, his character Derek is Sydney's new boyfriend, and I gotta say that he's actually a very likable. He's a very likable guy, and unlike Billy Loomis, he is the one that actually is very he's actually very lovable to Sid. He loves Sydney Prescott for who she is, and I actually really buy their chemistry. And there was actually a funny scene where Derek and Sydney were kissing each other in front of Randy, and then you see the look on Randy's face, and he was like, "Get a room," and then that comes off as like when Randy actually just like got a little jealous because he wanted to like be in a relationship with Sid, but then like it turns out that Sydney was already taken, unfortunately. So, and then you would think that Randy actually would snap and become like the killer because of the fact that how he just like reacts when he sees Derek and Sydney making out right in front of him. But it turns out that he's not the killer. So I'll get into the killer reveal after I talk about the negatives. So now let's talk about the negatives, because as much as I really like this movie, there are some problems I have with the movie. It's not a huge criticism at all, but there are some stuff in the movie where I was kind of like, do you really have to do this? I mean, okay, like I understand that you want to pay tribute to the first movie, but I don't know, but just making things that just like a straight up repeats just kind of makes it feel like you're not really like focusing on the continuation of the series of the story. So let's talk about like the repeats that they did. So the movie actually did have some moments where it just kind of like repeat the first movie, like the scene like where Sydney punches Gale. It was funny, like it was really funny, but I kind of felt like we kind of seen this already, and now the fact that Sydney and Gale are now friends, it's like why you had to like redo this again? Was it because like the first one wasn't even that great? I don't know, but and then the other scene that kind of really bothers me, and I'm kind of glad that the franchise actually put it to rest, is when whatever Gale and Dewey were doing their detective work to track down Ghostface. It seems that Dewey has been like faking his death all the time whenever like Ghostface attacks him, and Ghostface stabs Dewey in the back, and then you would think to yourself, oh, so since the fact that Ghostface actually killed off Randy for real, you would think that Ghostface actually kills off Dewey, but no, because in the end of the movie, it turns out that Dewey is alive, and that's where Gale goes into the ambulance with him. So those are the things I kind of don't like about it, is that they kind of like just straight up kind of repeats the first movie, but everything else, I think the movie did a very good job of making this like the continuation of the story, and not just being like, oh, let's quote this, let's quote that from the first movie, let's do all these repeats. It's not like with the movies, and especially the movie sequels that we have, or even remakes that we have nowadays, where they just did like nothing but straight up repeat. Like for example, Toy Story 4. But anyway, so yeah, like those are like my overall nitpicks with the movie. It doesn't really ruin the movie. I do think that the whole film itself is really good. I thought the direction from Wes Craven is fantastic. The writing from Kevin Williamson is great. Nev Campbell, David Arquette, and Courtney Cox are really good in their roles as Sydney, Dewey, and Gale. And Ghostface is usually like what he was in the first movie. Like his costume is iconic, but whenever like he just like chases after all these like teenage victims, especially mostly chasing after Sydney, he is like so clumsy that he keeps like falling over everything. Like the scene like where Ghostface was chasing after Sydney in the house, and then he just got tripped over the chair right in front of him, and he does not even see the chair right in front of him. And I was just like, oh, come on, Ghostface, how could you not see the chair? The chair is right there. And then it just comes like, oh, okay, I think it's because like I'm drunk and all that. I'm so clumsy because I don't know where I'm going. I didn't pay attention. Like moments like that gets like so hilariously stupid, but it was really funny. Like when Ghostface comes off as like pretty kind of clumsy and and at times, there's actually another minor nitpick I kind of had with Ghostface. One is there were some shots of Ghostface in the movie where I kind of felt like you kind of see the human eyes too much. And I just kind of felt like that's really out of place for a slasher movie, like especially like with Michael Myers from Halloween H2O, where you kind of see his eyes too much and really doesn't make him look as scary as he was in the original films. And that's the kind of the same thing I kind of have. That's one of the main problems I have with Ghostface in the second movie is that you kind of see his eyes a little too much, like through the Ghostface mask. And I think he's much scarier, like when you don't see the eyes. Same thing with like with Jason Voorhees and even Michael Myers, or in this case Leatherface as well, because his face is made out of our skin, which is disgusting. But anyways, back to Scream 2. So yeah, overall, this is actually a really good sequel. I actually think that it's very well written and it's very well directed. Now let's talk about the killer reveal at the end of the movie. It turns out that there's two Ghostface killers, just like in the first movie, and then it turns out that it was revealed to be Mickey and Mrs. Loomis. Yeah, now Mickey is actually a background character who was one of Sidney's friends, and then he was going after Sidney. And the reason why he becomes a Ghostface killer is because, according to him, he says that Derek has disappeared and he's been alone all night, and that is where he shot Derek in the chest, and that's where Derek dies. And it really sucks that he dies because Derek is such a likable guy, and he's actually a very good boyfriend to Sidney. Where I actually want those two to have like a future together if Derek didn't got killed off. But unfortunately, that will never happen because thanks to Mickey, he shot Derek. Now, as for Mrs. Loomis kind of reminds me of like Mrs. Voorhees from the first Friday the 13th movie, where she is like the psychotic mother who wants to get her revenge for the death of her son. Now, just like with Mrs. Voorhees, where she wants to get her revenge on the camp counselors from the death of her boy Jason, she wants to get revenge on Sidney for killing Billy Loomis in the first movie. So Sidney and Mrs. Loomis like has like a fight, and the fight actually turns out so brutal, especially like when Sidney punches Mrs. Loomis in the face, and it was like, psh, and I was just like, oh, like she is not playing around. And then you would think that Mrs. Loomis was going to get away with this, but then it wasn't until Cotton Weary came to the rescue and he saved Sidney's life. And then both Sidney, Cotton, and Gail defeated both two Ghostface killers, and then that's the end of the film. So Gail went to the ambulance, go to the hospital with Dewey. Everyone interviews. First they interview Sidney Prescott because they thought Sidney was the hero. But then when Sidney says, "You guys should go talk to Cotton Weary because he's the hero," so they go up to Cotton Weary, and then Sidney walks to I don't know, I guess like walking to class or something. I think that's how it ends. So yeah, guys, my overall thoughts on Scream 2. I think it's actually a very, very good sequel. I think the writing is fantastic. Wes Craven, God rest his soul, did a very good job like behind the camera. Everybody did a very good job, especially Neve Campbell, David Arquette, and Courtney Cox. They all did a very good job with their performances in this movie. And Ghostface is scary, even though he can be kind of clumsy, but that's how he is. And there's some like really brutal kills in this movie, and especially like the kill from, especially the death of like the second officer and CC Cooper is actually one of my favorite kills in the entire movie in this installment of the Scream franchise. So I actually recommend this movie to every single Scream fan, especially if you're a fan of the first movie. And if you really want to see like a good sequel to the first one, then Scream 2 is actually a sequel that I actually recommend this to slasher fans, horror fans, and Scream fans. So yeah, I think Scream 2, like I said, it's a very good sequel, and I do think it's actually Some people may say the movie is like better than the original, and some people may say it's just as good, if not better, than the original. So, but in my opinion, I think Scream 2 is a very good sequel, and like I mentioned, and like I just said, I actually recommend this movie to every Scream fan. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give Scream 2 a 9.6 out of 10. I think it's a very good sequel. It does have some stuff that I kind of don't like, where it just kind of like repeats the first movie, but everything else, I think they did the story very well, a very good continuation. There's some really brutal kills. The acting, especially from Neve Campbell, David Arquette, and Courtney Cox, all did a good job. Ghostface is terrifying, and I do think that it's actually one of the greatest horror movie sequels of all time, in my opinion, of course. So, folks, that is my review for Scream 2. Now, I would love to hear from you guys. What did you guys think of Scream 2? Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? Do you think it's better than the first one, or do you think the movie is just as good, or if not better, than the first movie? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, feel free to subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, and turn on the notifications when I make future videos. And stay tuned for the next horror movie that I'm going to be reviewing is Child's Play 3. If you guys have seen my community post of like what some other horror movies I'm going to be reviewing, the next one I'm going to review is the third installment of the Child's Play franchise. So, folks, that's all I got to say for today, and hope you guys enjoy my review for Scream 2. And I'll see you guys next time, and take good care of yourselves.